Okay, so 2022 is now over and it's time to do a yearly review. And this year I've decided to actually do it on camera and show exactly how I sort of do a yearly review. It kind of changes each year, but generally I do look at this one sheet right here, this Google Sheet that I created and have been using for a while now. It hasn't always looked like this, but this is how it looks like now. So let's go ahead and do this yearly review. We're going to start off with, there's 5 different categories, and we can go ahead and just start off with projects essentially. But basically this year, you can see right here, just to give you guys an idea of how it works, the columns are the 5 categories, which is projects, music, piano, kinetic, which is just exercise, and events and bonds. And for projects, what I normally do, or what I did throughout the year, was I would have, it almost looks like a calendar, but not really. But it's just like, this is just supposed to be January, but I marked it as January through March for the end of the year view. But normal view looks like this. This is when it's like done, but before it's done, it looks more like this, where this would be like January. This is the first week of January, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and then at the end of the month, this is basically the monthly goals that I have right now. But after I finish a week, I just like color it differently to make it look like this essentially. Yeah, that's just how this organizer, or my organizer, works. So what I did, I'm gonna undo what I did at the end of the year was I just made this January to March, like I split it into quarters basically. And this is the biggest thing I did that month. For each month. So this is January, this is February, this is March, and then so on. So looking at the project category, the biggest things that I did essentially throughout this entire year was the Skillshare classes that I made that got staff picks. So there was 2 of them. It was the microphone course and then the film yourself course. Which is essentially like this almost, except more talking head versus me facing a laptop. So that is the biggest projects I guess I did this 2022. And I will say personally for me, that is like not enough. Like that feels like I didn't accomplish much in terms of projects. For Skillshare. Although there have been like really cool things that I've been trying to do with other friends, like creating some sort of method of automatically switching cameras for multicam in Premiere. That's a little hard to explain if you don't know what Premiere is or multicam, but basically it's like 3 cameras and then like you run it through a program and it just matches the audio with camera and then it switches it for you instead of you having to watch through all of it and stuff like that. So that has actually been pretty successful overall, so that's what I use to edit now. So that was a big one too. And then there were 2 other ones, which is 2 other ones that were like freelance projects that I really enjoyed doing, which was a microscope video for my friend, and then another freelance video that I made for my friend, the company my friend works for. So those 2 videos I had a good amount of fun doing, and also just like I learned a lot from it. So those are 2 other projects that I almost feel like I enjoyed doing those projects more so versus the staff pick, but I guess the staff pick is more of an accomplishment, I suppose, versus the other 2, which were more for income purposes. But in my opinion, they were way more fun and memorable. And then we had 2 events where I helped my friend or a friend do some work for a film set. So Station 4 was a short film that a friend asked me to do audio for, and I managed to do it. That was like the first time I actually worked like a boom microphone, and that was really fun to do. And then we had a different friend who they had their final project for film school, and it was essentially recreating a scene from Whiplash, and that was also a very fun experience. So those 2 projects, not really my projects, but projects I was invited to help out for. I enjoyed those a lot. I almost feel like switching these 2 around, because the top one is like the big project, the bottom one is like secondary projects. I think I might just do that because I personally value the experience more than the result, at least in this case. And then, and then let's move on to music. So the next category is music. one of the biggest things I did this year was the Grand Escape cover with another friend, and she sang it while I recreated the instrumental in Logic, and that was definitely a big project because it was the first time I ever did something like that, and I felt like I learned a whole lot from it. But I did it in February, so that was like a long time ago, and I don't remember too much of it. Because the rest of the year I basically mostly worked on, I'm going to talk about music and piano at the same time since they're kind of similar. I mostly worked on piano originals, which is right here, 4 piano originals for 4 of my friends. I made it for their birthdays, and like for me that was like really big motivation to actually make something original. They're basically my first originals ever in terms of music, and even though they're just purely piano, it's still like in the music category. I did do some, like, I think maybe 1 or 2 covers as well for piano. And then I had a collaboration project with another friend, which is technically also a music original, but it's like more of a collaboration, so it was both of us doing it. So for me personally, I don't really consider that like own original. It's like a collaborative original, I guess, if that makes sense. But that one was also a good learning experience. I haven't released that one yet. I will probably do that soon. But those were the biggest things I did in 2022. There was a lot of months where I just like didn't really do too much, honestly. So that has to change for 2023. I feel like I'm going to skip to Events and Bonds. I feel like Events and Bonds took up a lot of time once it hit like May. Like once it hit May, the things that I started doing for Events and Bonds, it just took up so much time that I ended up filling up kinetic and piano, just because like it's allocation of time and energy. So if I'm doing so much for one category, obviously the other ones are going to suffer. So that's sort of what happened at a certain point too in the holiday season. But I started like coming back towards, I'd say the final quarter of the year, and just like maybe not in November because I wrote terrible for November for piano and music. And December was kind of weak as well. So like I had 2 months during the holiday season where like piano and music were just like really not consistent, inconsistent. So that's something to note. But yeah, Events and Bonds, I feel like 2022 for me was like a very special year in terms of really connecting with friends I've already had, and also just connecting more with some new friends, which when you're out of school, out of college, it's really difficult to do that. And this is probably the first year that I actually successfully did that and really connected with like new friends and like talk to them regularly, as well as just do like hang out once or twice a month, stuff like that. And it's been like such a great experience overall. So that to me was the strongest part of 2022. And it also helped motivate me for like piano, the piano originals that I made for my friends. So I made it so that it wasn't just like for Events and Bonds, but it also trickled down to like motivating me to do other things, and as well as like also the projects too, because my favorite experiences for projects were with other people and doing it like for them almost. So that is something I'm beginning to realize as well. It's like these categories are not necessarily standalone. They can all like really be motivated by like people and the events and bonds that I have had this year and will have. So that's just something to keep in mind, because like this review is not just for fun, but also like to make next year even better. So that's just something to note. But yeah, there's a lot of events that I had. Like I wrote 35 fun events essentially, and then for the top ones, I just stacked them all right here. And then I'm actually going to make a separate video for Events and Bonds, because there are like certain things I noticed that I feel like I want to talk about in a different video. So let's move on to Kinetic. And Kinetic is the last one. It was definitely a really weak year for Kinetic in my opinion, or just like calisthenic skills, gymnastics, all that stuff that I normally do. I didn't do any gymnastics at all this year. I only like jumped on a trampoline twice in 2022 and did like some backflips, and that's it. But normally I would go into like the gymnastics gym, open gym, and like really practice and try to get like new moves and new skills. So it's been a super long time since I've done that. Calisthenics wise, I think earlier in the year it was stronger. I was just like doing the routine, the strength routine, like more consistently. But honestly, I haven't made that much progress with anything. And then December came around. That's when I started doing the splits challenge, where I'm just trying to get the splits as soon as possible again. But this time I'm making good progress. So I think 2023 is the year when I get it, but we'll see. But for now, that was a very weak year. I guess the biggest thing I did was 16 pull-ups in a row, which I cannot do anymore because that was like earlier on, which is in April. And then jump rope, 10 double unders, or I call them double jumps, where you just swing twice with one jump. That one was a pretty fun challenge. Honestly, like the challenges I should have kept them going, which I technically did or have with splits, but splits I'm just doing it alone versus jump rope when I did it with my friend. So that's something I literally just said earlier, like doing it with other people can really help. And I guess for splits, I don't really like feel like I need anyone else, but for future projects involving kinetic stuff, I think I'll try to add someone to make it a bit more fun. It's just like a little bit more difficult when it comes to like exercise stuff, because like it's tough to be consistent, I'd say, for that. But I'll just try. It doesn't hurt to just try to ask someone else. So that's essentially just the 2022 like look back for review for all of these categories. Basically the best progress I've made on top, plus like my favorite experiences essentially, and then on the bottom's like the second to best, I guess. That's the way I chose to do it in 2022. I did not do this like exactly like this in 2021, but this was definitely fun to just like review. There's definitely a lot that I want to change up in 2023, but we'll talk about it as we go along. Okay, that's it for the review. Hopefully this could give you some ideas on maybe how you might want to review your year. This whole like system that I've made a very, very long time before I got here. I'd say 10 years. So this is definitely something you have to get very, very like used to. It didn't start out this way because it'll be extremely overwhelming to just like track 5 categories at once. But yeah, hopefully you learned something.